Okay, so in the last video, you guys learned why the middle colonies became colonies, specifically focused on how Pennsylvania becoming a colony really made the middle colonies what it was. Today, you're going to learn about, or I should say, in this video, you're going to learn about if you lived in the middle colonies during this time period, what would your life have been like? And as we introduce new things, I want you to kind of start to make a decision. Did you really like the way of life of people living in New England villages with their self sufficient towns? Or maybe you'll like the life of an immigrant moving into the middle colonies. So, we're going to go ahead and get this started. We know that the middle colonies were basically all about the Quaker attitude, that when the Quakers kind of infiltrated and started the colony of Pennsylvania and spread throughout the rest of the middle colonies, they brought with them the Quaker attitude of come one, come all, everyone is welcome. And with that attitude, people came. Immigrants moved into the middle colonies, immigrants of all different religions, because all different religions are welcome in the middle colonies. We know they're not welcome in the New England colonies. The Puritans are like, listen, it's my way or get out. Down here in the middle colonies, that Quaker attitude embraces all religions. Now, we talked about in the last video that immigrants really had no money. Whatever money that they did have, they spent on getting over to the middle colonies. And many of the immigrants took the remaining amount of money and bought a small piece of land for a farm. Not all. There were some immigrants that had very special skills, and they were going to use those skills living in the middle colonies. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sort of show you what life in the middle colonies might have been like if you were an immigrant moving into the middle colonies. So I'm going to try and include as many people as I can, but I have 2 classes worth here, so we'll give it a whirl. Let's say that Ryan McMurray decides that he is going to become an immigrant and move into the middle colonies. And let's say that he takes whatever money he has left and buys a small piece of land. And so Ryan is going to live on this land. And as a farmer, they didn't really know how to farm. So they really picked one crop and focused on growing just that so they could become really good at it. And so let's say that Ryan decided to become a corn farmer. And Ryan is a Methodist. And well, that's okay because here in the middle colonies, everyone is welcome. And let's say in the little chunk of land nearby, let's say this is where Claire's family decided to buy a small farm when they moved into the middle colonies. And Claire's family decided that they were going to focus on growing wheat and only wheat. And Claire's family are Catholics, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And over here, just south of Claire's farm, this is where Ashley's immigrant family decided to move. And they are going to focus on growing potatoes and only potatoes. And Ashley's family are Quakers. And let's say up here, let's say this is where Lewis's family is going to buy some land. And Lewis's family is going to focus on growing wheat. And Lewis's family are Lutherans, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And down here, this is where Zayden's family is going to buy land for a small farm. Zayden's family are going to be apple farmer, if I can make it an A, there we go. And Zayden's family are Methodists, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And over here next to Lewis's farm, this is where Wyatt's immigrant family will buy some land, and they are going to focus on being corn farmers. And Wyatt is a Baptist, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And down here, this is where Haley's family is going to buy land for a farm. Haley is going to focus on growing wheat. And Haley's family are Catholics, and that's okay because everybody's welcome. Up here, this is where Curry's family is going to buy some land for a farm, and they are going to be wheat farmers, and they are Lutherans, and that's okay because everybody's welcome. And down here, this is where Jaden's family is going to buy some land as some immigrants. And they are going to focus on growing potatoes. And Jaden's family, well, they are Quakers. And so they're right there. And over here next to Curry's farm, this is where, let's do Brandon. This is where Brandon's family is going to buy some farmland, and they are going to be apple farmers, and they are Methodist, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And right here, this is going to be our Cammie's family is going to buy land, and they are going to be wheat farmers, and they are Catholics, and that's okay because everybody's welcome. And right here, this is where Joseph's family is going to buy land. They are wheat farmers, and they are Presbyterians, and that's okay because everybody's welcome. And right here, this is where Serenity's family is going to buy, as immigrants, a small piece of land. And they are going to focus on growing wheat, and they are Catholics. And that's okay because everyone's welcome. And here, this is where Seaball's family is going to buy land. And they are apple farmers, and they are Baptist, and that's okay because everyone's welcome. And on this piece of land here, this is where Peyton's family is going to buy land, and they are going to be wheat farmers, and they are Quakers. Now, I want you to take a look at this. All of these immigrants spent what little money they had to buy their piece of farmland. And because they didn't really know how to farm, they only really grew one type of crop. But think about this for a minute. I'm going to focus on Wyatt's farm for a minute. Wyatt grows corn and only corn. But I'm certain that Wyatt's family doesn't want to eat corn and only corn. So I want you to think for a minute. How in the world, if Wyatt's only growing corn, can Wyatt get a variety of crops to feed his family? Well, if you think about it, get rid of that. What if Wyatt and the other farmers traded their extra crop for others? So maybe Wyatt could trade corn with Lewis and get some wheat. So Wyatt could give Lewis some corn and Lewis could give Wyatt some wheat. And maybe Wyatt could be trading for apples with Brandon, and Brandon could be getting corn from Wyatt. But I think that's a great idea. And that's exactly what the farmers did. They traded with other farmers to get the other crops that they needed. They certainly couldn't buy any crops because they don't have any money. Their only thing that they could have to get what they need is to trade the crop that they grow. But I don't know if you know this, there really isn't a lot of spare time in a farmer's life to be traveling from one farm to the next farm to the next farm. And so they needed to find a way to make this trade easier. And they figured it out pretty quickly. They decided that they would all meet in one place where they could have their crop ready to trade for all the other things that they needed. So Wyatt would come, and Lewis would come, and Brandon would come, and Jaden would come, and they would all meet in one central location between their farms. And this central location was a town that was called a market town. And if you've ever gone to like a market, like Eastern Market or Central Market, it's a one-stop shop. And that's essentially what the market towns are for. These farmers don't really have anything on their farms. Their farms are definitely not self-sufficient. All Wyatt has is corn, but he wants more than just corn to feed his family. So Wyatt is going to bring his corn to the market town maybe once a week, maybe once a month, and he's going to meet with other farmers, and the farmers are going to trade their crops for the crops of the others. So Wyatt would bring a bunch of corn into the market town, and he would do a lot of trading with the other farmers, farmers that brought apples, farmers that brought potatoes, and farmers that brought wheat into the market town so that Wyatt can leave with apples, potatoes, and wheat to feed his family. So it was definitely a great place. This market town was a great place for the farmers to go and get the other crops that they don't grow. By the way, you probably noticed that when I was building your farms, there was one crop that I put in here more than any others. And that is because the most common crop grown in the middle colonies, without a shadow of a doubt. And if you didn't notice, you can take a look at my farms here. Without a doubt, the most common crop grown was, hopefully you guessed it, wheat. And you might be like, gosh, why in the world would they grow so much wheat? That is because wheat gets ground into flour, and flour is used to make bread. And bread is a very filling food. So it's a very important food for people who don't have a lot of money. Now, so much wheat was grown that the middle colonies were actually given a nickname. They were often referred to as the breadbasket colonies because so much wheat was grown and that wheat was used to make bread. So the market town was a great place for our farmers to come in and trade with other farmers. Now, that can't be the only thing this town is good for because these farmers have other needs. And so it's a good thing that some of our immigrants have some very special skills. For example, maybe Kaysen was an immigrant and he really wanted to use one of his special skills. Kaysen is really good at working with metal. So Kaysen decided to come in and be the town blacksmith. And so Kaysen moved into this town as the town blacksmith. I'll try and do a better job writing from now on. And maybe, just maybe, um, we have back here, maybe Jackson was an immigrant, and Jackson had very special skills at making and repairing shoes. So he became this town's cobbler. And maybe over here, this is where ooh, I got a good one. Maybe this person was really good at making barrels. And so our town Cooper was going to be Dylan. He's expert at making barrels. And maybe over here we have Luke. And maybe Luke owned or wanted to run the town general store where they sold imports like tea and spices and silk. And then let's just do one more. I mean, obviously, we could have many more of these towns. We need obviously a tailor so that we can have someone to make and repair our clothing. And maybe our tailor is going to be Ryan Hall. And what happens is obviously, like, let's focus real quick on Kaysen, for example. Kaysen is a blacksmith. He's not a blacksmith and a farmer. So he needs to be able to feed himself and his family. So what would happen is when Wyatt would come into the market town bringing his corn to trade with the other farmers, he would also use that corn and give that corn as payment to the blacksmith. And in return, Kaysen might make him a horseshoe or fix his gardening tool or something. So not only are you going to trade as a farmer with other farmers, you're also going to use your crop to get the services that you need, and that will help our business owners here in the market town feed their families. Now, another thing that needs to be in our market town, I'm going to get rid of the word market town here so I have some space, is, obviously, while these farmers are visiting the market town, they want to be able to worship. And so when Wyatt comes into this market town, he is going to want to go to church. But as a Baptist, he's going to want to go into a Baptist church. Well, when Joseph comes into the market town, Joseph's a Presbyterian. Does he want to go into a Baptist church? No, he's going to want to go to a Presbyterian church. And Claire is going to want to go to a Catholic church. And Brandon's going to want to go to a Methodist church. And so, because there are so many religions all in one place because of that Quaker attitude, our market towns needed to have multiple churches to accommodate all of the different religions. Now, there's one more thing that you need to know, and that is that when one of our farmers wanted to go into town, they wanted to bring as much of their crop as possible. And so, obviously you can only bring so many apples with you on one trip on a horse. So in the middle colonies, actually right here in Pennsylvania, they invented something that would help them to bring a lot of their crop in at one time into the market towns. And I'm going to do my best drawing it here. You know me and my drawings. There's no way this horse is going to look any good. I'll try here. There's the best horse I'm going to get. And so this was actually a large covered wagon. And they figured out that these large covered wagons would be great for carrying a large load of their potatoes or their wheat or their apples or their corn into the market town at once, so that when they're in the market town, they could doing a lot of trading with the other farmers, going to a lot of the different businesses like the cooper and the cobbler and the general store, and be able to have a way to bring all of their goods back to their farm. Now, this invention was huge for the middle colonies, and this large covered wagon was called the Conestoga. And this was a game changer, because now when Wyatt goes into the market town, because he can only go once every few weeks or every month because he's a farmer, he's got a lot of work to do, he can bring a lot in with him and do a lot of trading and getting his goods and services that he needs at the market town. And now he can use that Conestoga to get everything back with him. So this is an extremely sloppy visual of my market town, but hopefully it gives you a general idea. Now let's look real quick so we can just take a minute to fill in your notes here. So go ahead and open your notes booklet to where it says market towns. And hopefully we can figure this out. It says farmers travel to market towns to blank the crops they grew for other crops from the other farmers and goods and services. Hopefully you know that word is trade. Awesome job. They don't have any money to buy anything. All they have is their crop that they grow on their farm. This is a review from the New England towns, but a general store in a market town sold things that are shipped into the colonies, things like tea, sugar, spices, cloth, shoes, and buttons. In and im go together, so that is our imports. Great job. And then some of our immigrants also chose not to become farmers. Instead, they opened some businesses inside the market town. So the market towns also had services like blacksmiths to make things from metal, cobblers to make shoes, a grist mill to turn that wheat into flour, a sawmill, lots of different businesses there in the market town. And again, our farmers would use their crop and trade with those business owners. And that was great because now the farmer has what they need, and the business owner, the blacksmith or the cobbler, has food to feed their family. All right, look at this one. It says there were multiple blank in each market town to provide a place for all religions of the middle colonies to worship. And of course, the Quaker attitude said all religions are welcome. So we have all different religions here. So they need multiple churches in each market town, not just one church in a town like in the New England colonies. This one, there was a different church for each religious belief. And then, of course, invented right here in Pennsylvania, there's a much better image of the Conestoga than what I drew, but it says people would ride on a Conestoga, which is a large covered wagon, to carry their produce from their farm into town to trade for goods and services. Last set of notes here. The main crop grown in the middle colonies, hopefully you remember this, it is wheat. And so much wheat was grown in the middle colonies that the middle colonies became known as the breadbasket colonies. Awesome job. I know that was a lot, and thank you for being patient. Make sure you have all those notes filled in, and hopefully you can become an expert on labeling the 4 middle colonies correctly on a map.